In this heart-wrenching video, we recount the tragic story of Junko Furuta, a young girl whose life was cut short by a horrifying crime. Born and raised in Misato, Saitama Prefecture, Junko was a bright and ambitious teenager, attending Yasushi Minami High School. She lived with her parents, her caring older brother, and her younger brother. A diligent student with high grades and very few absences, Junko was well liked by her classmates. She held dreams of becoming an idol singer and worked tirelessly at a plastic molding factory after school to save money for a graduation trip. Additionally, she had accepted a job at an electronics retailer where she planned to work after graduation. Known for her beauty and charismatic personality, Junko was popular among her peers. Her biggest joy was watching the television show Tanbo, Dragonfly, and eagerly anticipated its final episode. Little did Junko know that her life would soon take a horrifying turn. On that fateful night, she crossed paths with 4 teenage boys who would become her tormentors. These 4 individuals were identified as Hiroshi Miyano, Joe Ogura, Shinji Minato, and Yasushi Watanabe, known as A, B, C, and D in court documents. These teenagers used the second floor of Minato's house as a hideout and were involved in criminal activities such as purse snatching, extortion, and rape. Miyano, the leader of the group, had a history of problematic behavior, including shoplifting and damaging school property. He had dropped out of a private high school in Tokyo and was involved in increasingly serious crimes, including sex offenses. Living with his girlfriend, Miyano was working as a tile worker to support their future together. However, his association with a gangster and repeated criminal activities led to the end of their relationship, leaving him disillusioned and resentful. As we delve deeper into this tragic tale, be warned that the events that unfold are distressing and may be difficult to hear. On the chilling night of November 25, 1988, Miyano and Minato set out with sinister intentions to rob and rape local women. That night, they targeted Junko Furuta as she rode her bike home after work. Under Miyano's orders, Minato violently knocked Junko off her bike and fled the scene. Miyano then approached her, pretending to be a good Samaritan, offering to walk her home safely. Unfortunately, this was a ruse. Instead, Miyano led her to a warehouse and then to a nearby hotel where he subjected her to rape and threats of violence. After the first assault, Miyano called his friends Joe Ogura and Yasushi Watanabe and bragged about the despicable act. Shockingly, Ogura suggested keeping Junko in captivity to allow others to sexually assault her. The group proceeded to kidnap Junko, taking her to a house owned by Minato's parents in the Ayase district of Adachi. This house became their horrific gang hangout. For the next 40 days, Junko endured unimaginable suffering at the hands of her captors. She was repeatedly beaten, raped, and tortured. The group even invited other men and teenagers to join in the heinous acts. The horrors inflicted upon Junko were beyond comprehension. She was forced to dance naked, masturbate in front of them, and endure unspeakable sexual assaults. They inserted objects into her body, burned her with lighter fluid, and force-fed her alcohol, milk, and water. As the days passed, Junko's appearance drastically changed due to the brutal attacks and malnourishment. Her face was swollen and unrecognizable, and her body was severely crippled, emitting a rotting smell. The grotesque injuries inflicted on Junko caused the perpetrators to lose their sexual interest in her. In a sickening turn of events, they kidnapped and raped another woman who happened to cross their path. Junko Furuta's ordeal is a heartbreaking reminder of the darkest depths humanity can sink to. As we continue this painful narrative, let us remember her as a symbol of strength in the face of unimaginable cruelty. Now we recount the harrowing events that led to her tragic end and the pursuit of justice for her untimely death. On January 4th, 1989, the horrific torment Junko endured reached its peak. Enraged after a mahjong game loss, Miyano, filled with anger, resorted to a sadistic act of pouring lighter fluid on her and setting her on fire. Despite her desperate attempts to put out the flames, Junko became unresponsive, and the torture continued. The perpetrators subjected her to unimaginable pain, punching her, dripping hot wax on her face, and forcing her to drink her urine. The vicious assault lasted for a prolonged 2 hours, and they even dropped an iron exercise ball onto her stomach, causing further agony. Tragically, Junko eventually succumbed to her wounds and passed away, ending her suffering. Less than 24 hours after her death, the group, fearful of the consequences, wrapped Junko's lifeless body in blankets and placed her in a travel bag. They then sealed her remains in a 55-gallon drum filled with wet concrete. Under the cover of darkness, they disposed of the drum in a cement truck in Koto, Tokyo, attempting to erase the evidence of their heinous crime. Miyano, showing no remorse, placed the finale episode of Tanbo in the bag with Junko's body, not out of pity, but to avoid her haunting him as a ghost. The tragic fate of Junko Furuta shocked the nation and ignited a desperate search for answers and justice. On January 23, 1989, Miyano and Ogura were arrested for another sexual assault, leading to a series of revelations. During the investigation, Miyano revealed the location of Junko's body, believing that Ogura had already confessed to their crimes. The police found the drum containing Junko's body the following day, and she was identified through fingerprints. More arrests followed, including Watanabe Minato and Minato's brother. Several other accomplices involved in the abuse and rape were officially identified and charged, including Tetsuo Nakamura and Koichi Ihara, whose DNA was found on and inside the victim's body. The investigation into Junko Furuta's tragic end brought to light the darkest depths of human cruelty and the urgent need for justice and societal change. Now we delve into the prosecution and sentencing of her assailants, whose identities were initially sealed by the court. Despite the severity of their crimes, the identities of the defendants remained anonymous due to their juvenile status. However, journalists from Shukan Bunshun magazine exposed their identities, arguing that such heinous acts should not protect their right to anonymity. All four defendants pleaded guilty to committing bodily injury that resulted in death rather than murder, leading to their sentencing. Hiroshi Miyano, the mastermind behind the crime, was sentenced to 17 years in prison. Unsatisfied with the ruling, he appealed, but the Tokyo High Court upheld his conviction and extended his sentence by 3 years, resulting in a 20-year prison term. Miyano was 18 years old at the time of Junko Furuta's murder. Nobuharu Minato, now known as Shinji Minato, received a 4 to 6 year sentence initially. However, upon appeal, Judge Ryuji Yanase resentenced him to 5 to 9 years. Minato was 16 at the time of the crime. In 2018, after his release, he was arrested again for attempted murder. Yasushi Watanabe, who was 17 at the time of the murder, originally received a 3 to 4 year sentence. His sentence was later upgraded to 5 to 7 years. Joe Ogura, who served as a central figure in the crime, spent 8 years in a juvenile prison before his release in August 1999. After his release, he changed his name to Kamisaku after being adopted by a supporter. He later faced charges for assaulting another person and was sentenced to 7 years in prison. Junko Furuta's parents were devastated by the sentences handed to their daughter's killers. They won a civil suit against the parents of Minato for allowing the crimes to occur in their home. Additionally, Miyano's mother paid 50 million yen, $370,000 in compensation to Junko Furuta's parents, as ordered by the civil court. The sentences received by the perpetrators left many questioning the justice system and seeking accountability for the heinous acts committed against Junko Furuta. Finally, we reflect on the aftermath of this heart-wrenching tragedy and the lasting impact it has left behind. On April 2, 1989, Junko Furuta's funeral was held, marking the somber end to a life cut tragically short. One of Junko's friends delivered a heartfelt memorial address, welcoming her back and expressing the pain and suffering she must have endured. Memories of the school festival and their shared graduation were cherished, and the principal presented her with a high school diploma posthumously. Junko's intended future employer paid tribute to her aspirations by presenting her parents with the uniform she would have worn in the position she had accepted. The uniform was placed in her casket, symbolizing her dreams forever preserved. The location where Junko's body was discovered has since been developed into Wakasu Park, a place of remembrance and reflection. The shocking nature of Junko's case, with its unimaginable brutality, prompted discussions in Japan about a perceived American disease, an epidemic of violent crime influenced by American culture. Junko Furuta's tragic story has been the subject of at least 3 books and inspired films that aim to shed light on the horrors she endured. Her memory serves as a reminder of the darkest depths humanity can sink to. As we conclude this harrowing tale, let us remember Junko Furuta as more than just a victim of unimaginable cruelty. She was a beloved daughter, friend, and student with dreams and aspirations. May Junko Furuta rest in peace, and may her memory continue to inspire us to strive for a world free from violence and injustice.